Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Greater Good podcast, sponsored by the San Diego Harbor Police Foundation. I think, I said this before, but this show is not about anything other than those people who actually give back in a meaningful way to our community. Yeah, sure, it's important for people to write checks and to donate to these wonderful nonprofits and other organizations, but then there are the people that actually do more than just write a check, and they put their feet on the ground and they get actively involved in these phenomenal projects and ways to develop and improve our community. So I'm really excited today. With me is going to be one of my good buddies who he sort of personifies the giving back or the greater good concept. He's spent a life of service to our nation and to the community in really meaningful, impactful ways. And so welcome Dan Beintema from the USS Midway Foundation. Hi, Dan.
Hey, Jeff, great to join you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're looking pretty good today.
Thank you.
Are you on board ship?
I am aboard the USS Midway Museum and decided to put on a clean shirt and take a shower today just for you.
Oh my gosh. And you combed your hair even.
Yeah.
You have so much of it compared to me. So the USS Midway Museum is one entity on board that wonderful, beautiful aircraft carrier, but it has another entity as well. Is that not right?
That's correct. So we have the USS Midway Museum, and the museum had the idea a number of years ago to form a foundation that might be able to expand the influence and awareness of the museum across the country and different places in the world with a foundation. So we established that so that we could help other nonprofits that are doing things similar to ours.
Does that foundation have a particular focus, Dan?
It does. Our grant-making focus right now, well, the overall focus is on freedom and educating people on freedom and what it takes to maintain our freedoms. But our specific grant focus is supporting organizations that support veterans, that support military families, and that support first responder organizations.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, I would be remiss without full disclosure here. Dan Beintema and the USS Midway Foundation and the museum have been fantastic supporters for the San Diego Harbor Police Foundation since our actual inception. In fact, short of my check, which was the first check that went into the foundation, Dan Beintema and his wonderful group over on the USS Midway, they provided Chief Stainbrook and I our very first check based on a concert you held on board the flat top of the ship. I forgot who the group was that was singing at that concert, but it was a really nice kickstart for our foundation. And since that time, you've been enormous supporters, both with financial support, but even more so. You guys, if you recall, were active in our Perkins K-8 initiative, our elementary middle school. You provided some time in your educational learning department there, some transportation, lots of different things you've done. So aside from me talking about us, what other great stuff have you guys done?
Well, first of all, to talk a little bit about the San Diego Harbor Police Foundation, we were really excited when you incorporated as a nonprofit and you were able to really represent well this sector of our grant focus. Like I mentioned, the first responder supporting organizations, that you guys came out swinging with great things to do to not specifically support the members of the department, but to support the mission of the department and things you were doing in the community to help reduce crime and increase the lives or advance the lives of some of our young people in the community. And we were really excited about that. The other things we've been able to do is support some organizations that are serving military families those organizations that support the enlisted project. Their main focus is to try and help our younger sailors and enlisted personnel across all services to become a little bit more financially aware of how they can control their budgets at home and not get themselves into tricky spaces, but also doing things to support many organizations that are trying to help veterans, not only with suicide prevention, but just to be healthier individuals and try and get some of them out of homeless situations and into their own homes, things like that. Very important to be supporting freedom and all those who defend it and protect it.
Yeah, that's really a wonderful thing that you do. So how has the Midway been after, can we even say post-pandemic? I'm not sure if we're there yet, but I know you had kind of a rough time there.
I'm hoping that we're in this post-pandemic period and we can refer to it as such. We'll see how this variant Delta or whatever they call it, takes hold. But there was 2 times during the pandemic that Midway was shut down. And during the time that we were open in the middle there, from July 1st to the first part of December, things were a little on the lean side, and we had to adjust our budget and staffing and a number of things to be able to accommodate all of that. But 2 great things happened. One, we sent out a plea well into the pandemic. We left the beginning of the pandemic for some of the other organizations to get in touch with donors and have them be supported rather than us first. And again, that for the greater good for sure. But when we made a plea for, hey, we could use a little love too in November and December, our greater Midway family really responded very, very well to help us keep the ship floating and get some things done and help people, continue to be paid to whatever degree we needed to. But then when we were able to open again in the spring, the community and visitors from all over the country and around the world have come back to Midway. We've got a full ship today with people visiting and enjoying all the different aspects and again, in the process, learning about freedom and what it takes to defend and protect our freedoms and the sacrifices that were made by so many over the years, particularly aboard this ship, to make that happen.
That's really, really good news. So other than your service on the Midway, which by the way, it was a fight to get the Midway into San Diego, as I recall. It's very political, contentious.
It sure was. Midway was decommissioned in 1992, and for the next 12 years after that, there was a lot of work done by a core group of people to get Midway to come here, and arrived here late in 2003. We opened in 2004, and we have just celebrated our 17th anniversary here, Pierside at Navy Pier in San Diego. Just a wonderful thing. All the naysayers, I think, have all become supporters and given us a thumbs up across the board.
You and the staff really made them believers, didn't you? So the Midway is it number 1 or number 2 attraction in San Diego County?
TripAdvisor does a poll of their members, and pretty extensive data that they gather from their members worldwide. And according to the TripAdvisor statistics, it's the number 1 attraction in the greater San Diego area for visitors to come and have an experience. We're now ranked in the top 5 of all museums in the country, and that includes some big time museums in New York and Washington D.C. and Chicago. So we're very, very fortunate and well blessed to be able to be in that kind of company.
My father used to always say, the harder I work, the luckier I get. So I think there's probably been a lot of hard work.
Luck plays a role.
So other than that kind of work, I think my listening audience should know that not only all the great work you've done there, but You're a Navy jet pilot fighter guy. In your history with the Navy, I believe you retired as a lieutenant commander. Is that correct?
My final rank in the Navy was and is lieutenant commander. That's true. I never completed the number of years and months of service to be able to retire, um, but all told, had about 12 years of service in active duty and in the reserves. Flew in a reserve squadron over at North Island, but before that was flying the S-3 Viking, not exactly a fighter or a big attack bomber, but a very important airplane to the fleet, carrier-based twin-engine jet. And we were talking earlier today with some guys aboard the ship about how the friendships that you forge as a naval officer in a squadron with these guys. Those relationships endure for a very, very long time, and you really only knew those guys to begin with for maybe a couple of years at the most. But it's a shared experience in serving our country, putting yourself in harm's way, and being away from your family that tie us all together.
So you're a member of the Tailhook Society, are you, sir?
That's right. Well, there's a number of members, and I want to say that you are too. Did you have an opportunity to land aboard an aircraft carrier?
Yes, sir, I did.
So you're a tail hooker as well. But yes, I have just right around 300 arrested landings aboard aircraft carriers, and it's quite the experience to train for all of that and experience all of that. And I can feel it in my bones and my heart rate to this day when I think about that.
So what's the difference between arrested, landing, and what's the opposite of that?
Well, a landing like you would do aboard a runway at an airfield in an airliner, that's just a field landing. But an arrested landing is when you're using this appliance applied to your airplane, the tail hook, to be able to engage a cable stretched across the deck, or at least one of 3 or 4 cables stretched across the deck, and have it pay out enough to be able to bring you to a safe halt before the pointy end of your airplane goes off the pointy end of the ship. So
if it doesn't work, that's going to be a bad day at the office.
Yeah, it at least be an exciting day at the office at a very minimum. But there's times that when you're landing, your tail hook doesn't engage the arresting wire, and you got to go flying again. You come around and you try it again.
Touch and go. Exactly, full throttle. Let me get out of here. So when you were in the Navy, not only did you fly naval aircraft, but you served admirals as what is that role called?
After I finished my fleet tour with the VS-33 Screwbirds over at North Island, I was assigned to the name of the command is Commander Naval Base San Diego, which at the time was filled by a 2-star admiral. And I was assigned over there as that admiral's flag lieutenant and personal aide. So that entails an awful lot of things, but you're responsible for everything that the admiral does and preparing a lot of what he says or she says. I didn't work for any female admirals, but we have a number of wonderful women serving that role in the Navy. And when the original admiral that I was ordered there to serve retired a year later, then we got a new boss. And then when he retired, we got another boss, and I worked for him too. So all told, I served 3 admirals in that capacity, right across the street from Midway here, actually. And that's an interesting story, that I began my naval service a few days aboard Midway in Japan in 1981. And I finished my active duty service across the street from Midway here at Commander Naval Base San Diego. I will finish my career here in 3 weeks aboard Midway. Just like I started, I'll be retiring in the middle of next month. And the kicker is they're tearing down the building across the street from Midway to make make way for and room for some other high rises that are going in over there. They relocated the Navy headquarters, but in all of this, my last place on active duty is being demolished, and my last career days are aboard Midway, where I started.
So you've come full circle.
That's full circle.
Totally. I mean, actually, so you're retiring. Well, that'll be a big loss for San Diego as a community. I know a little bit about your retirement since Dan and I had the opportunity to take a men's road trip a few weeks ago. Maybe you could just quickly tell us about what that was all about.
Sure. I have a large family, and a good portion of my family are a farming family in central Iowa. A number of years ago, I bought a farm there, built a house there, and always thought that would be the place that I'd like to retire to. So with my ending my service aboard Midway, that's exactly what I'm doing. I sold my home in San Diego and began the process to move the bulk of the rest of my items from San Diego to the farm, my shop tools and such. And I needed to do that driving and driving a trailer full of stuff there. And one day Jeff said, "Hey, if you want a co-pilot, I'd love to ride with you." So we figured out the road trip, and on the 23rd of May, we left San Diego and we arrived at 1:30 in the morning on the 25th in near Des Moines, Iowa, having driven straight through without incident, without weather, without wind, without any kind of issues. We did a great job of it. So thanks again for that great trip.
One almost incident. So Dan was driving in one leg of this. Actually, it was really a lot of fun. We just told stories and talked pretty much the whole time. I think neither one of us got more than 30 to 45 minutes worth of actual sleep while we were driving all those hours. But it was the middle of the night. We were in Iowa, and the left front quarter panel of the truck had to swerve because this deer jumped out right in front of us, and as it was turning, it spun around, fortunately, and went back off the road. But we came literally within inches of hitting that animal, which would have been significant for us on the trip. But otherwise, no, it was great. I appreciated it quite a lot. So when you were aide to these admirals, can you think of one particular story that just sort of stands out in your mind that might add a little humor to the many years you served our country so ably?
I can think of a few stories. I got to figure out whether there's one of them that's suitable for broadcast or not. One thing that I still can't believe that I did. The Admiral's office looked out over San Diego Bay, and in the afternoons with the sun setting to the west, the sun would glint off the water and just about blind anybody that's near that window. I would work out, go for a run, or play basketball for an hour or so at lunch each day. And the second gentleman that I had the pleasure to serve loved to tell stories. So I had showered and coming back into his office at like 1:30, 13:30 or 1400 in the afternoon. The sun was getting low, jumping off the water. And I sat in this chair across from his desk, and he was silhouetted by the sun. And I was tired. I'd already been there since 6 o'clock in the morning working on stuff. And in the middle of one of his stories, I felt myself starting to nod off and fall asleep. Not unlike listening to some of Jeff's stories while we were driving, but I never did nod off completely. And I feel myself, I'm a lieutenant, a junior officer in the Navy, falling asleep in front of an admiral who's taking the time to tell me a story about his life and his experience. And here I am nodding off in front of him. Absolutely one of the most embarrassing moments of my life, but true to his professionalism, either he didn't notice because he's so wrapped up in his story, or he never said anything about his aide closing his eyes in front of him.
You lucked out on that one.
I totally did.
Could have really incurred some wrath.
Yeah.
So, not only have you worked for the USS Midway in a role as president of their foundation and head of all the development and many other roles, you've also contributed to San Diego County in other ways in terms of giving back. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I appreciate that. After I got out of the Navy, I went to work for the American Red Cross chapter here in San Diego for a year, and then was afforded an opportunity to join the City of Chula Vista management team, and worked in various capacities there with the city manager's office, with fire chief as his assistant, and then down at the what used to be called the Chula Vista Nature Center, now called the Living Coast Discovery Center. But when I was in the city manager's office, we created an employee giving program there where we facilitated a number of different things, but primarily in November each year, a food and toy drive where we would do everything we could to collect money, food, and toys to be able to distribute to deserving families throughout the area, but primarily in Chula Vista. And it was called Chula Vista Cares. It was a very successful operation, zero overhead whatsoever, and it really engaged a lot of the city employees of all walks of life, all pay grades, and ability to give. But it started teaching philanthropy and supporting others for the greater good to all of those people. And that was the first time I really dipped my toe in philanthropy, other than what I had done with the Red Cross. And then moved down to the Chula Vista Nature Center, where we were in full-blown philanthropy mode, trying to raise money to help support coastal resource conservation education efforts as far and wide as we could. Then I got the opportunity to go over to the San Diego Foundation, where I was the chief operating officer there. San Diego Foundation now has over $1 billion in assets, where they're supporting to the tune of, I would imagine, close to $100 million a year, money going out into the community and around the country, supporting various charitable causes. And then I got to join Midway, where we're doing more of the same. So it's been, thankfully, a career where we've been able to do good and serve others, and I'm proud of that.
Yeah, you should be. So I heard a story from a guy one time that you got to meet Ross Perot all because of was it a shark or a turtle or a squirrel or some sort of animal? Was that true?
That's very true. When I was at the Nature Center, we got a call from Ross Perot and his staff, and
many people don't know who Ross Perot is. Many years ago, Mr. Perot ran for president of the United States. He was at that time, I believe, he was a billionaire.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
And he didn't win that presidency, but he was made world famous because of his charts. He was very, very involved in making charts about everything. And actually, the charts made sense, but as a politician, it didn't quite work for him. Sorry, go ahead.
He founded and ran Perot Systems out of Plano, Texas for a number of years. He turned that operation over to his son. And sadly, within the last 2 years, I think it was, we lost Mr. Perot. But he had reached out to us at the Nature Center because he has this large museum attached to his office building, or it's part of the office building there in Plano, Texas. And in that museum, where he actually showcases all those charts that Jeff's talking about, because he had a chart for everything that he wanted to talk about with regard to economics of how the country could do better. But he also had a large saltwater aquarium, and he just had the idea he wanted some leopard sharks in that saltwater aquarium, and he heard that we had some leopard sharks that they might be able to borrow. So we figured out a way for him to be able to have those on loan to his museum with the idea that they would come back to us. One of the problems was, though, that his aquarist, who was supposed to be well versed in acclimating new specimens to a saltwater environment, didn't really do his job that well, and these 3 baby sharks got sick. And so we had to go there and recover those sharks, and Mr. Perot pleaded that could we have another chance, and I said, well, how about if you let my staff and my veterinarian go there and get them all acclimated. So we made multiple trips to and from Plano with and without sharks, and I had numerous opportunities to spend time with Mr. Perot and share meals with him and stories and a number of things. And I got to tell you, of all the people that have walked this earth, his support for others, again, for the greater good, was pretty amazing. All he did after he retired from Perot Systems was coordinate care for those who had lost limbs in combat, that had gotten to the point with the medical institution that they had been served by through the VA or other institutions. They would call and say, hey, what else can you do? And his staff would coordinate a very, very high level of care and pay for it, so they could not only have a prosthetic limb, but a functional one, and increase their quality of life. And he did that day in and day out.
So I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. So can you do an impression of Ross Perot?
I don't know if I can do that, Jeff.
So just imagine 2 crazy guys driving to Iowa and listening to Dan Beintema use Ross Perot soundbite. It kept us awake.
It did. That's all it was. And fully half of those stories were true. So
fully half. That's good. Or what I like to say is true story, and then people say, well, why do you need to say true story? Does that mean all the rest of your stories are not true? And I say, well, yeah, maybe not. Anyway, so you're retiring. I'm assuming that they found a suitable replacement. Big shoes to fill there. So what are your plans moving forward? You going to just become a gentleman farmer?
Well, there's different ways to define that. Yes, we did find a replacement, and she's coming on board on the 12th of July. Her name is Laura White Ludwig, and she comes from a phenomenal organization that I mentioned earlier called Support the Enlisted Project. We're super, super thrilled to have her coming aboard. Very capable, big-time professional. So the next chapter for me is, yes, sort of that Green Acres kind of thing. I'm going to shed the suit and tie, as it were, head to the family farm. I think my family looking forward to having another set of hands and muscles to help out with a number of things that have to be done there. Unfortunately, from time to time, there's another mouth to feed at family dinners. But we got a lot going on with the family. Some challenges there, but it's a beautiful, beautiful place. It's been my family's home on my dad's side for decades and decades, and I'm looking forward to being there and having fun, playing some golf, helping the family, making green things grow, and harvesting things that aren't green anymore for sale and for feeding livestock.
So when I was out there in Iowa, I'd never been to Iowa before, which is pretty surprising considering, I thought I'd been pretty much everywhere in the world. It's a beautiful place, and I learned more about corn than I ever needed to know from Dan's cousin. Very articulate gentleman who was out repairing a tractor and immediately enlisted our help and, fetching wrenches and all that sort of stuff. And he was just full of really, for him, important information, but for me, I don't know if I'll ever use it again, but it was fascinating to see the belly of America. I mean, Iowa and states like that grow so much and provide for so many. is really remarkable to see. It's quite beautiful this time of year as well. It's green and lush and soy and corn, and it's quite an enjoyable trip. Well, I can't thank you enough, Dan, for making time to visit with us today and share just a little bit about your wonderful life and how you have provided sustenance and opportunity for so many people here in San Diego County for so many years. You will be sorely missed for sure, not only as a friend of mine, but for all the greater good that you have done here in San Diego. So I just want to wish you all the best. And if you ever need anything from us here, just feel free to reach out. You can send a couple of bushels of corn every once in a while, fresh. I understand it's best if it's just picked and then you drop it into the boiling water for like no more than a minute. Is that true?
That's true. For sweet corn, that's exactly what you want to do. The corn that we're growing out there, don't want to eat it, but the cattle and other animals like
so
that.
It's feed. It's feed for livestock.
Yeah, that's feed for livestock. Jeff, thanks for affording this opportunity for us to have some time together. My life has been richly blessed, and even more blessed by getting to know you and having you as a friend. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Dan. Good talking to you.
You too. Take care.
You take care.